Welcome in everyone. RI Director Peter Kyle, DG Lyle Chase of 7030, DG Charles Seeley of 7020, visiting Rotarians from Zone 33 and 34, DG Sonia Allen, DG N Leslie Ramdani, all PDGs, all AGs, special invited guests, Patricia Schaefer of New Gen Peace Builders, Rotarians, Rotaractors, Interactors, welcome. Welcome to our peace meeting, and thank you for being here once again. We have a really wonderful afternoon of discussions, and we have a special guest tonight who will be participating and giving us a wonderful discourse that will be of benefit to all of us. So thank you for being here. Before I move on, I would like everyone to join me in a moment of silence for, I think most of us have heard that we have lost two members of our district. First of all, we lost Shipper Lou Kisong from Suriname over the weekend. And today, unfortunately, we also lost Ria Nobby from Rotary Club of Princestown in Trinidad. So if you can join me for just a short while for a moment of silence and remembrance of these two wonderful people, dedicated humanitarians, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you very much. May they rest in peace. Now I would like to call on Rotarian Heather Hoptal to provide the invocation and peace message to us. Rotarian Heather.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing on our meeting as we are gathered together with our Rotary family. Grant us a spirit of dialogue and strengthen our resolve to conduct our Rotary mission with joy and enthusiasm. We pray, Lord, that you will send your Holy Spirit to be our guide in these virtual gatherings, to add value to the quality of our fellowship until we are able to resume our in-person meetings. As we gather this evening, we pray that you would make us instruments of your peace, that you would help us to sow love where there is hatred, help us to grant pardon where there is injury, and help us to have hope in these days of COVID crisis. Dear Lord, we ask that Rotary friends and Rotary ways will help us to serve thee all our days. Amen.
Thank you very much, Rotarian Heather. Now I'll ask Rotarian Christine Charlotte to give us the four-way test.
Thank you, Brian. Dear Rotary family, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you tonight. I'm very honored to share with you and to have the opportunity to share this ethical message we have to convey, the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendship? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you very much. Enjoy your peace conference with Summer Lewis. And I give the floor to Debbie Rapshan, our chair of District Peace Committee.
Thank you, Christine. Fellow Rotarians, distinguished guests, good evening to all. I want to especially thank Summer Lewis for agreeing to be our feature speaker tonight, RID Director Peter Kyle for joining us, and Director of New Gen Peace Builders, Patricia Schaefer, who we are currently in negotiations with as to the committee's main peace initiative. Lyle Chase, RMO, Audley Knight, all the past district governors of 7030 who are with us tonight and who continue to support our district. PDG Milton, I know it's almost midnight where you are. Rotarians, Rotaractors, thank you for your presence. Today has been a difficult and sad day for me as I woke up to the news that one of my club members, Ria Nobby, passed away this morning. She had fallen unwell on Saturday, and during the last 2 days, I know that many Rotarians across the district who knew her well engaged in prayer for her recovery. There was an outpouring of condolences from members across the district on our leadership chat, which I have shared with her family and which they are grateful for. Please continue to pray for Ria's friends and family at this sad time. Our session this afternoon is the first of the district Zoom sessions we intend to host as a committee to build and promote peace during the year. Our aim as a committee is to encourage clubs to become peace builder clubs by engaging in projects and activities geared towards promoting peace, to train Rotarians, Rotaractors, and Interactors during the Rotary year to become positive peace activators, and to increase the number of Peace Fellows in District 7030. No one can dispute that now, more than ever, we need peace in our interaction and communication with each other if we are to make a difference and turn the tide of violence and aggression that surrounds us today. More, the world itself needs peace. I encourage you during Summer's presentation to post your questions in the chat box so we can have them answered at the end. Before Summer presents, we have greetings from our dear DG Lyle and RI Director Peter Kyle, and I now invite our committee member Stephanie Buckley of the Rotary Club of Aruba to introduce DG Lyle to address us. I thank you. Enjoy the session.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session. It is my honor to introduce the team lead for Rotary year 2020-2021. David Lyle Chase joined the Rotary Club of St. Lucia on the 1st of December, 1983. He served in many capacities on the board, where he was responsible for introducing many different projects which raised funds for the club and have continued until recently. In 1992, Lyle sought and received approval from his club to form a Rotary club that included women. With the help of a small group of Rotarians, the Rotary Club of Grow Isle was chartered on March 5th, 1993, with 28 members, including 10 women. Lyle was the charter president of the Rotary Club ever since, for the coming 16 months. Since then, Lyle served the club on the board in every capacity. Lyle also served the district as assistant governor on 4 occasions and led Rotary's relief response to Hurricane Thomas in 2010, while serving as assistant governor to PDG Tony Watkins. In 2017, Lyle facilitated the first satellite club in District 7030 on behalf of his club, the RC Gross Isle. With his wife Maggie, they attended almost every meeting of the fledgling club in the south of the island for more than 2 years. In that same year, he was nominated for the role of district governor and became the official nominee at the district conference in Suriname in April 2018. He is a strong advocate for peace and strongly supports the district's trust in 2020-2021 Rotary year on peace building and the concept of building positive peace. Lyle believes that kindness is transformational. Both Lyle and his wife Maggie are multiple Paul Harris Fellows, and Lyle is a member of the Paul Harris Society, a major donor and the benefactor of the Rotary Club International. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I know we all have our ways of pronouncing things, but just for the record, it's Grosile.
Oh, okay.
As my French colleagues would be happy to hear. That was thank you so much. So my family of Rotary, welcome. Before I start the scheduled program, allow me a moment to express heartfelt condolences from Maggie and myself, the Rotary family, and the families of P.E. Ria Norby and Rotarian Liu Ki-sung, better known as Shipa, who passed away this morning and yesterday respectively. Ria joined Rotary in 2015 and was an active member of the Rotary Club of Princesstown. She was secretary of her club this year, and she would have been president next year. A true Rotarian, Ria was known and loved by many across District 7030. We are still in shock and grief at Ria's sudden passing, but together we celebrate the life of this vibrant and beautiful Rotarian. We will hold her in our hearts forever. Rotarian Shipa succumbed after a short battle with cancer. He was 85 years old. His widow, Hilda, has been an active member of Inner Wheel. He will be missed in particular by the Rotary Club of Paramaribo Central and all of Rotary Suriname and the district. May they both rest in peace. Let there be justice for all. Let there be peace for all. Let there be work, bread, water, and salt for all. Let each know that for each, the body, the mind, and the soul have been freed to fulfill themselves. Nelson Mandela. Today sees the kickoff of our peace program for Rotary year 2020-2021. Under the direction of District Peace Committee Chair Debbie Rupchand and her team of peace champions, much work has already been done to plan Rotary's District 7030's Peace Initiative. It is fair to say that Debbie and I have been talking about peace for at least a year, probably more. The objectives is to change the way that peace is perceived and make the attainment of positive peace a priority that is understood in our district, both by the community at large and by Rotarians, Rotaractors, and Interactors, many of whom see peace as something we wish for, but which may never be achieved. I'm both honored and delighted to welcome RI Director Peter Kyle, as well as Rotary International's Coordinator for Strategic Partnership with the Institute of Economics and Peace, and herself a Rotary Peace Fellow, Summer Lewis, and Director of New Gen Peace Builders, Patricia Schaefer, about whom you will hear more in due course. I also welcome my friends, my Rotary family of Flamingos, my classmates, some of whom have been able to take time out from their very busy lives, trust me, I know, as district governors, to join us this evening. Our past and future district governors, our past and future district governors from District 7020 also, district leaders, and the entire Rotary family and friends to this exciting session. It is now my privilege to ask RI Director Peter to set the stage for this evening, and in so doing, please allow me to tell you something about him. Peter first went to the United States from New Zealand in 1973 to pursue a postgraduate studies in law at the University of Virginia as a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar. After a career in private legal practice in New Zealand, he returned to the United States in 1992 to take up a position with the World Bank as Senior International Attorney. He retired from this position in 2009. Peter was inducted into Rotary in 1976, so he predates me, and has since served the organization in many capacities. He has been particularly involved in alumni Rotary Peace Fellow activities and has chaired both the Alumni Relations and Rotary Peace Centers committees. He has also served as an International Assembly Trainer, Council on Legislation Delegate, RI President's Representative, and WashRag Board Member. He currently serves as the Dean of the Rotary Representative Network. Peter is our RI Director for for 2020 to 2022 in Zone 33 and 34. Peter has received the Global Alumni Service to Humanity Award, together with the Service Above Self Award and the Citation for Meritorious Service. He and his wife, Margaret, live on the West River in Maryland in a home designed by Margaret and close to their 2 children and 1 grandson. My fellow Rotarians, my family of Rotary, please help me in welcoming Rotary International Director Peter Kyle with a truly Caribbean welcome. We should have had steel pan there, but we didn't. Peter. Peter was there, but I'm not seeing him.
No, I'm not seeing him either. I think he probably got disconnected.
I think my internet problems are contagious.
I'm having them as well.
Perhaps we can move forward, DG Lyle, and when he rejoins us, have him bring greetings later.
Yes, yes, I think
All
so.
right. Okay, so I'll invite our committee member, Marguerite, to introduce our featured speaker then. Thank you. Margaret, you're muted.
We'll try again for the ones who haven't read my lips. Okay, here we go. And now, distinguished guests, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our featured speaker and Peace Fellow, Summer Lewis. Summer began her Rotary journey as a university student, thanks to a volunteer service grant to Guatemala. This turned into a life-changing experience for her that sealed her commitment to a career in international development and philanthropy, focusing on building global relationships for the greater social and economic good. Summer's passion for peace was very noticeable. She was selected as a Rotary Peace Fellow and in 2012 completed a Master of International Studies in Peace and Conflict Resolution at the University of Queensland in Australia. Focusing her studies and work on the connection between economic development and peace, Summer has spent more than half her life abroad, working, living, and traveling across 38 countries and 6 continents. Originally from Manhattan, Kansas, Summer recently moved to her new home in Mexico City. She currently manages Rotary International Strategic Partnership with the Institute for Economics and Peace, overseeing the creation and messaging of tools and activities to make peace tangible and actionable for 1.2 million Rotarians worldwide. Today, we are the lucky ones, able to listen to her inspiring words and share in her contagious passion for peace. Ladies and gentlemen, dear Rotary family, please enjoy our speaker and Peace Fellow, Ms. Summer Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. I was talking to Debbie earlier today. I've had some internet issues, but I'm hoping that the current connection that I have is going to work well for our talk. It involves some last-minute logistics of moving across Mexico City to a different apartment to try to get good internet. But again, I did it because this is very important to me, and it's such an honor to be here to present. So I wanted to make sure that I could come through loud and clear. I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint, and I'll have someone please confirm that it is actually showing. Great. All right. Well, first of all, just to begin, as I said, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you to Debbie and Lyle. I remember meeting you in Hamburg, probably, well, it would have been a little over a year ago. And following that experience, you made very clear your interest in peace, that you were very motivated, and since then had followed up with me and asked me to do this talk. So again, I'm really excited that you're inspired and you're inspiring others. And also I'm glad to be here to help assist with that. Your district is in very good hands in terms of working for peace. Also want to give my respects to Rotary International Director Peter Kyle. I've known Peter for some time now. He's known me as well through my Peace Fellow journey. So it's a real honor to be here sharing this time with him as well. And did also want to share my condolences in terms of the Rotary family members that you've lost. I myself have been a member of the Rotary family in one way or another since 2004, and I do understand how connected and how important this family is. So please, my heartfelt condolences. So just getting started with my talk here, I always like to begin by asking members of the audience how they define peace. The theme that we're talking about today is peace, but as we know, it's such a vast and wide concept. It encompasses so many different ideas, including actions, including different emotions. It's an incredibly complex term, and each of us has our own idea of what peace is exactly. Just last night, I was listening to a presentation by one of my favorite thought leaders, Esther Perel, who's a relationship therapist, and she was talking about different ideas of peace from the Talmud, which included peace being a river, joining two distant places together, peace being a kettle, joining water and fire, two elements that on their own would ruin food, but put together are able to produce food and nourishment. And peace also is this idea of a bird that can be on the ground, but then also takes off, joining what I would consider this idea of reality and dreams. So those are just three ideas of peace, and I'm sure you each have your own as well. The ideas are very diverse. They're just like Rotary. Rotary itself is an organization made up of a diversity of people, as we can see on this call today, diverse ideas, but in my mind, bound together by this common commitment to building peace and goodwill in the world. Now, Rotary has a long history of being committed to peace. Rotary was at the creation of the UN in 1945. Rotary was also instrumental in forming UNESCO. And at present, Rotary maintains high-level consultative status with the UN Economic and Social Council. So Rotary, on an international level, is taken very seriously for their commitment to peace. But I always like to mention that, at least globally, peace hasn't always been taken that seriously by everyone else. I've spoken to some experts in the field of peace who now there is a field of peace studies who talk about how years ago, if you even mentioned the word peace in high-level meetings or with government agencies, people would pretty much dismiss you, roll their eyes, or say, what on earth are you talking about? But of course, organizations like Rotary have always known that this concept of peace goes beyond just something esoteric, and it's really about bringing people together to build goodwill. And things are improving. And organizations like Rotary, together with the Institute for Economics and Peace, they take peace very seriously and are very active in working towards peace and changing the conversation around what peace is and isn't, how it's practiced, and how we make it a reality. So a key concept that the Institute for Economics and Peace works with, which is the organization that Rotary has a strategic partnership with that I help to coordinate, they work with the concept of positive peace. And this was mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, and I was really glad to hear that term being used widely. Positive peace It can be very complex. There's a whole academy that we have dedicated to this that I'll share with you later on if you're interested in delving more into what it is exactly. But basically, in a nutshell, it refers to the attitudes, institutions, and structures that sustain peaceful societies. Now, IEP is an organization that's dedicated to doing research and collecting data on peace. And out of that, they've come up with what they call 8 pillars, or basically the 8 common factors that peaceful societies have. And I won't delve too much into this, but what I want to mention here is that this concept of positive peace and the pillars of positive peace relates so directly to the work that Rotarians do in their 6 and soon to be 7 areas of focus. If we think of positive peace as building the foundations of more peaceful societies, we can think about the work that Rotary is doing and Rotarians are doing within the different areas of focus as being completely aligned with that. This work is also very aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals, about meeting basic needs, about building stronger societies, and ensuring that we are building more peaceful societies through this nuts and bolt work of dealing with current issues and development challenges. So turning our attention beyond the 6 and soon to be 7 areas of focus, I want to focus in on the peace building and conflict prevention area of focus. And within this particular area of focus, I now want to talk a little bit about the vanguard of that particular area of focus, which is the Rotary Peace Fellowship Program. As mentioned, I myself am a Peace Fellow. I'll share a little bit more about my story here, but just on a broad level, I want to mention, for those of you who may not be familiar with this fellowship program, it is an amazing program that Rotary offers. It's been around since the early 2000s, and to date, more than 1,300 Rotary Peace Fellows have graduated, have obtained either a master's degree or a certificate in peace and conflict resolution thanks to this program. Now, I'm one of these fellows, but really quickly, I wanted to share a little bit about some of the other fellows that are part of the program, very quickly. So Abdikar Ahmed, he was in my class of Peace Fellows. He is a Canadian of Somali origin. He grew up in Kenyan refugee camps and eventually was able to make his way to Canada. He completed the Peace Fellowship. We were together at the University of Queensland and has gone on since then to work in making his city of Winnipeg, Canada, more welcoming to refugees, as he himself has been in that position. Another Peace Fellow who's also a dear friend of mine, Amanda Martin. She is from the United States. She did the certificate program in Chulalongkorn, and that's where I met her in 2012. I went to visit Chulalongkorn after graduating from University of Queensland. And Amanda works in Bolivia. So she works with ETA Projects, which is a US-based organization that is focused purely on working in Bolivia, especially to build stronger healthcare systems, working directly with individuals in rural communities. An amazing project, very much related to Rotary, and they do a lot of work within the WASH area of focus. And then finally, Carlos Juarez. This is a colleague of mine. He's currently the director of the Institute for Economics and Peace in Mexico. We live about 5 kilometers from each other here in Mexico City. And Carlos got his start in peace building in his native city of Acapulco, Mexico, when he noticed that organized crime was sending a lot of people to their homes and people weren't talking about what was going on. And so he decided to organize neighbors in a march to demand safer cities and basically to build strength in numbers. So these are just some of the stories about Rotary Peace Fellows. We also have Patricia Schaefer on this call, who's a colleague of mine, and I'm very, very excited that she's on here. She herself is a Peace Fellow, and hopefully she can share her story in a future presentation. So I did want to back up a little bit here though, and just go back to my origin a little bit, because I often get asked, well, how did you become a Peace Fellow? How did that happen? What kind of past, what kind of story, what history do you have? Well, you know, I had a pretty, I say normal childhood growing up overseas, which I'm usually told then by people in the US, that's not normal. My parents were educators for the US military. So I grew up in places like South Korea, Okinawa, Japan, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, the daughter of civilians teaching for the military. So I grew up on military bases. So if you want to talk about a juxtaposition, as we're talking about peace and conflict resolution. But really what those experiences did for me, it really taught me in living abroad, in living in different cultures and different contexts, it taught me a lot about my own privilege and recognizing that I was different from other people, that I had certain privileges over other people based on affiliation with the US military, based on being white, based on a number of different factors. And this awareness stayed with me. Of course, as a kid, I couldn't really verbalize this and I didn't really understand it, but it was when I went to college at Kansas State University and began to study women's studies and sociology that I really started to be curious about this privilege and to wonder, how could I use this privilege to support other people in a very general sense? And it's with that I got involved in an international service project that was supported by a Rotary volunteer service grant. So this is a particular grant that no longer exists, but it's like my intro says, this is what really got me started. I was able to go to Guatemala for a few months, and it was there that I began working with a women's textile cooperative. And this was a transformative experience for me, because here I was, a very privileged college kid, going to a very rural area of Guatemala that had weathered years of civil war, poverty, crime, many different issues. And I met this group of women that were dedicated to, as we would say in Spanish, saliendo adelante. So they were dedicated to getting ahead. And they did this through weaving textiles and selling them. And I was able to, at their request, begin a project to sell some of these textiles in the US. And like I say, this is really where I got my start and where I became very committed to saying, this is what I want to do. I want to work in international development and empowering other people based on their skills and their own desires to get ahead. So following my work in Guatemala, I went on to do a number of different projects, but one of the pinnacle projects was that at Asian University for Women in Bangladesh. So I worked there for a year in 2009. And it was a really fascinating experience being in a university that was supporting women, so supporting gender equality and education. And it was an experience too during that time that I realized I was reaching a point in my career that I needed more tools, more connections, and more knowledge, how to do development better, how to deepen the work that I was doing and deepen the connections. I had been in the field, I had been in the classroom, I had been in the boardroom, I'd been in a whole range of different places. And when the Rotary Peace Fellowship was mentioned to me during this time by a Rotarian who brought it up and said, you should really consider applying for this, I immediately looked into it and realized this is actually what I want to be doing. This is the master's program that I want to study. And it's also a fellowship program that, of course, is competitive, it's prestigious, and I applied twice. So I always tell people, encourage people to apply more than once. But it was really in that master's program, the quality of education at the University of Queensland, the quality of connections. I'm here with 2 of my Rotary Peace Fellows from my course. I keep in touch with many of the people in my class. And the quality of connection with Rotarians in Australia and the support that was provided by the Rotarians on the ground, by the Rotary Foundation, and now through all of these connections by Rotarians worldwide. The program is really in a class of its own. And it was after completing the master's that I realized, in the midst of people saying, okay, now you have a master's degree, you're a Rotary Peace Fellow, surely what you'll want to do is go on to work for the UN. That's how you create peace. And I had to disappoint a few people by saying, I appreciate that you think that's what I can do, and I can see that that for some people is the right path, but really what I want to be doing more than ever is returning to my roots. I want to return to my roots in community-based development. I want to be back in the community, as I said, working with like the Textile Cooperative in Guatemala, supporting small-scale development initiatives that are driven by the people themselves. And so it was with that that I took a job in Oaxaca, Mexico, with an organization called Coffee Kids. And this was an organization, a small NGO, based out of the US with an office in Oaxaca, that was dedicated to supporting development projects in 5 different Latin American countries. They worked primarily in coffee farming communities, which was an area I had worked in previously. I had worked with fair trade coffee many years before. And this was a really unique experience. And I did find that I was very happy working for this nonprofit, being back on the ground, supporting community level development. And it was also a chance to apply some of the skills I had learned from my master's degree, but also to learn a lot that they don't teach you in the classroom about entrepreneurship, about sustainability, about what it really means to support people and to support people who want to get ahead. So following my work with Coffee Kids, I decided to stay in Oaxaca, Mexico, and I started a consulting organization, True Roots International. And I did this with my former boss, Jose Luis Zarate. And for about 4 years, I worked as a consultant, and True Roots was really dedicated to providing services, some to Rotarians and also to nonprofit organizations and international development organizations, specifically in monitoring and evaluation and measuring the impact of projects and programs. Now, it was my work with True Roots and long-term connections that I had maintained with Rotary that led me to my current position. So for 2 years, as I was working for True Roots as a consultant, I also worked part-time as the Rotary Institute for Economics and Peace Partnership Coordinator. After 2 years, and at present, I became full-time with this position. Within the Rotary IEP partnership, and as coordinator, my work has primarily focused on providing educational tools and materials to Rotarians who are interested in promoting positive peace and education. And one of the first projects that I worked on as Rotary IEP Partnership Coordinator was with positive peace workshops in Mexico. Now, these took place in 2017 and 2019, thanks to global grants through the Rotary Foundation. And they brought together Rotaractors, young leaders from across Mexico in both instances to really train them on the pillars of positive peace and to help them relate it to the work that each of these individuals was doing. The work that these individuals were doing varied, but it had to do with the pillars of positive peace. They were working in their own communities on different issues that completely connected to the pillars. This work in Mexico in 2017 and 2019 led to additionally positive peace workshops in Colombia in 2019. A very similar model of educating Rotaractors as well as non-Rotaractors, university students, in the case of Colombia, YMCA members, but educating them on the pillars of positive peace, helping them to strengthen their work, the work they're doing, not just theoretically, but also in practice, and then also creating really strong connections between these young peace builders. Now, I know that your district is considering doing a workshop like this. I've been in contact with Debbie about this and also introduced Patricia Schaefer, who works with New Gen Peace Builders. When Debbie mentioned interest in a positive peace workshop for youth, I said, I've got the person for you. So really, this forms part, this idea of positive peace workshops and more Rotarians doing them like your district is planning to do. It's really a core component and a core activity of the Rotary Iep partnership. So I'm very, very excited to see that this is likely to be taking place in your district in the near future. Now, additionally, in addition to the activity, the positive peace workshops that we do as part of the partnership, or that we support, I should say, we also have a Capstone program that Patricia Schaefer is also part of, and that is the Positive Peace Activator Program. This is a relatively new program. We just started it at the beginning of this year, and this program is focused on training Rotarians, Rotary Peace Fellows, Rotaractors, and other Rotary stakeholders in the IEP Positive Peace Framework, connecting them to each other for stronger networks, and then also encouraging the activators to work with Rotarians, be it in training or on projects. Now, this activator program is scheduled to take place between 2019 and 2022 with trainings in 6 different regions. At present, we have trained the US and Canada cohort, of which Patricia is part, and we're in the process of training the Latin America cohort. We are hoping in October, presentially or online, and then we'll be moving on to other regions in the world over the next 2 years. So again, because it's likely, I'm guessing, that Patricia will be presenting to you all in the future, I won't share her story, but I did want to share very quickly the story of 2 activators and specifically how they are responding to COVID-19. So they've been trained on the Positive Peace Framework and have each responded to COVID-19 based on their training. So just very quickly, Rotary Positive Peace Activator and Peace Fellow, actually both of them are Peace Fellows. Lorelei was part of the US and Canada cohort, and she works in the city of Calgary in Canada. And so what she's been doing is aligning the pillars of positive peace, as mentioned previously, with her city's pandemic response. Doing SOAR, or strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results. I think this is pretty similar to a, what is that called? The analysis. So my brain just escaped me, but basically a strengths analysis, a SWOT analysis. She's been doing that with her city to really look at where are we strong in the pillars, where are we weak? And what do we need to be thinking about as we're developing a response to COVID, and we're thinking about the long-term impact of this on our community, and how can we start to really strengthen work with different organizations within our community and different initiatives to try to bear the brunt of this COVID-19 pandemic. And then additionally, Maria Julia Moreira, she is a member of the Latin America cohort, and she is a member as well of the Argentinian chapter of the Women's Democracy Network. And so even though she hasn't completed the training, she's already applying the pillars of positive peace to the work that she does in responding to the pandemic with a gendered perspective. So basically, at the beginning of the pandemic, her organization recognized that women were being affected very differently in her home city of Buenos Aires, Argentina. And they decided to analyze this, research it a bit, and also to create a guide with some practical advice for members of the community and specifically for women. So this guide that they created looked at putting a gender lens on homeschooling during COVID-19 and who's doing the majority of the work, negotiating household duties, also looking at setting up telephone circles to call shut-ins and older members of the community, a lot of different specific initiatives, specific ways that they're responding to COVID-19 that relate very, very closely to the pillars of positive peace, thinking about the acceptance of the rights of others, good relationships with neighbors, free flow of information, etc. So these are just two examples of activities that the Rotary Iep Partnership has supported, training of these individuals, and in turn, how these individuals are taking the positive peace framework and making it practical and applicable in this particular time. Now, one thing that I was asked, Debbie did ask this, and it was a great question. She said, can you also, in addition to talking about the Peace Fellowship and the Rotary Iep Partnership and the programs that you do, can you talk a little bit about projects? So I get this question a lot as well. People will say, okay, we want to do something with peace, but what can we do? Well, I'll share here in a little bit some educational tools and materials that we provide through the Rotary Iep Partnership to help people and Rotarians think about peace and frame projects. But when it comes to actually saying, okay, here's an actual project, we've got the positive peace workshops that I've mentioned. Those are really a concrete activity that can be carried out by a district or even a club. And we have a curriculum and guide that I'll share here in a minute as well that can help Rotarians do that. We have the Activator program as well, so that you have individuals that you can go to help do that. But beyond that, what other options might you have in terms of, say, doing a peace project? Well, there's two examples here that were global grants that the area focus manager, my supervisor, Rebecca Kroll, shared with me recently. And they do in many ways involve training and education. This is really a common theme with peace. But these are two examples that one is with Mediators Beyond Borders, which is also a partner with Rotary. And this was held in Indonesia, where they trained women peace builders in capacity in terms of mediation and negotiation. It's also something they did in South America. One example. And then also in the US, Peace in Chicago Schools project that involved education, but looked at a longer term project. So those are two specific examples. I'm always happy to share other examples, and my contact information will be shared at the end of this. There are a lot of options within peace. Of course, as I said, education and training seems to come naturally, but this is, it's also a really important component of peace building is education. So just wrapping up here, the one thing that I really want to draw out of this presentation, based on covering a lot of different activities, a lot of different programs that Rotary supports, and me also being a beneficiary of those, is to just really highlight how amazing it is that Rotary is doing all of this work to support peace building. This is where Rotarians' investment is key as well. It's an ongoing thing. So there can always be more work done. And also on this point that I bring up, a lot of the programs I've mentioned are education and training related. Well, it's really important to consider the value of those sorts of programs. It's one thing in the Rotary world to build schools or to build wells. And that's very important, especially when that's really an urgent need of a community. But I sometimes find that Rotarians shy away from projects or programs that focus more on education and training because they say it's not tangible enough. How do we know what the results are? You know how many wells have been installed, or you know how many books have been donated, but it's harder to know if someone's created peace or not. And this is where I just encourage people to think about peace and education and training as a more long-term game. What a lot of Rotarians are doing in these programs is they're investing in the skills and knowledge of individuals, and especially young people. And this in turn is building the capacity of those individuals. And it may not be something you're going to see the results in a month, 6 months, or a year, but it's really a long-term game. And it's really, truly a long-term investment. So, having said all of this, I hope that gives you some inspiration and some ideas of how you can work in peace and how you can continue supporting it. As I've said, with Debbie at the helm this year, you are in very good hands. But I did want to mention then, just as a quick laundry list, specific ways that you as Rotarians can support peace. Obviously, the first is to promote the Rotary Peace Fellowship Program. This is the most important component, as I say, in this program are Rotarians. Yes, it's important, the candidates and the Peace Fellows, but it's Rotarians who look for Peace Fellows, potential Peace Fellows, who contact them, who guide them through the process. So it's up to Rotarians to identify who those candidates might be. And so that, to me, is really the capstone and the most important component of this program. Like I said, I wouldn't have become a Peace Fellow without a Rotarian approaching me and encouraging me to apply. So start keeping an eye out and an ear open as you meet people who you think might be ideal candidates. Additionally, I really highly encourage people to join the Rotarian Action Group for Peace. So this is an official action group within Rotary that offers guidance and resources to further collective Rotary peace efforts. Additionally, I really encourage people to support projects, whether they're district grants or global grants, or even beyond that, a small club project. It's really important to do the work. You can also ask a Rotary Peace Fellow to help you with this, to help formulate an idea, design, and carry it out, as well as the activators, the Positive Peace Activator program that I shared. Also, I encourage you to plug into the Rotary Iep partnership. We have lots of tools for you to use. And those are here. So specifically, the Rotary Positive Peace Academy is an online learning platform that's completely free. It takes about 2 to 3 hours to complete, and you get a certificate at the end of it. We also encourage Rotarians to have a discussion about positive peace in their clubs or in their district, and we have free Positive Peace PowerPoints and facilitator guides available on the Rotary Iep Partnership homepage. And then finally, I mentioned this earlier on, that there's a Positive Peace curriculum being developed, and it will be available within a month. And this is basically a sort of guide to help Rotarians in thinking about carrying out a positive peace workshop, different activities that you can conduct during that. And in addition, this guide, we hope that some of the activities will be standalone tools that Rotarians can use to, say, do a peace mapping of their community, to really think about and come to a conclusion about what sort of projects could we do in peace. This guide also, I encourage people to consider, if you think about doing a workshop or you want to do an activity, to contact me to get in touch with an activator who can assist you with that. Really, the guide is a tool, but we're also encouraging Rotarians to think about, as they're doing this peace work, to look to different resources that exist, be it Rotary Peace Fellows, Positive Peace Activators, or other professional peace building organizations that they can work with to really develop these programs. So having said all of that, I know I've given you a long to-do list and a lot of options, but the one thing that, beyond doing, I also like to encourage Rotarians, just as I wrap up these talks, to think about something a little more internal and something more related to being. And that's to reflect. Of course, doing is good and we want action, but I think we also have to start from ourselves, our beliefs, our commitment to peace, and to really think about our motivations behind peace. And so I always like to end with this particular quote by Desmond Tutu, which I'm sure many of you have heard, but I think it's really quite beautiful and quite apt, especially now with the pandemic and the world we're experiencing. My humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together. This really defines the ethos of Rotary. And I like to tweak this quote just a bit by saying, my peace is tied to your peace. We are all in this together. This means that what we do as individuals, be it in our personal or our Rotary life, it adds up to collective movement and change as we connect with others and as we work together. So if there's just one thing out of all of the information I've shared today, the one thing I'd like you to remember is that each of us has the capacity and each of us is a peace builder. And so peace work is not just something relegated to high-level officials, Rotary directors, or Rotary Peace Fellows. It is something that each of us can and must do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Summer, for your inspirational presentation. I have quite a few questions in the chat, so it means that people are all very excited about it as well. Before I go to the questions, though, I do know that our Director Peter Kyle is back with us, and I would like to invite him to bring us greetings before we continue with this session.
Thank you, Debbie. Good evening, everybody. This is hard to believe, but just as District Governor Lyle started his remarks, the heavens opened, the rain came pounding down, thunder and lightning galore, and I lost my internet connection. The timing could not have been worse. So my apologies. I'm speaking to you from Washington, D.C., so you know exactly who I should blame for this act of nature. But I would like to say how thrilled I am to be with you and how impressed I am that District 7030 has taken on peace as one of your initiatives for this Rotary year. Peace is close to my heart. I've been involved in the peace program for quite some time. I had the pleasure of chairing the Peace Centers Committee for 3 years, and I was involved in various other peace initiatives. I managed to hear almost everything that Summer told you. Summer is a great ambassador for the peace program. Summer, congratulations. If you're still on the line, you did a great job talking about IEP and referencing some of the other peace fellows. I will have an opportunity, I think, in September to come back to 7030 and tell you a little bit more about Rotary's role as a peace-building organization from an historical point of view. Summer touched on that briefly, but there's a lot more that I think Rotary and Rotarians can be proud of. We have a very rich history of peace building, and I see that as a very important dimension of our work going forward. So I won't tell you any more now. I'll come back in September and speak to you at more length. Lovely to see so many old friends on the screen. I saw David Edwards, Charles Seeley, many friends, Patricia Schaefer, Sonia Aline, forgive me if I miss out a few, and of course Lyle. So thank you again for this opportunity. I'm sorry I did not get an opportunity to talk to you before Summer spoke, but I'm delighted to have this opportunity, and I wish you well for the next 2 months until we meet again in September. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you very much, Director Peter. We are very much looking forward to your presentation on September 21st, when we'll be celebrating World Peace Day. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Summer, I would like to go back to the questions now. The first question we have is from Shameen James Jatchville, and she's asking, who are the target audience for the Positive Peace workshops?
That is fairly flexible, and it pretty much can be determined by the district. The Positive Peace workshops that we did in Mexico and Colombia, or that I should say we supported, because they were carried out by professional peace building organizations, those did focus on Rotary actors, university students, and other organizations such as the YMCA. The age range being 18 to 30 years old. Now, The Positive Peace Guide that is coming out, the curriculum that I mentioned, is based on those workshops. So a lot of the activities come directly from those workshops and are somewhat geared towards that age range, but it's not to say that can't be adjusted. So ultimately, you could decide to do a workshop with older adults, with only Rotarians. There's many, many options. Of course, as always, I always encourage people, though, to consider working with professionals that can help to plan and design and implement the workshop. One thing to mention, though, very quickly, those workshops were global grants, and global grants can benefit Rotaractors, they can benefit non-Rotary stakeholders. However, a global grant, and I'm not an expert on this, but just based on some discussions, my understanding is a global grant that focuses on training cannot necessarily, the money cannot go to training Rotarians. Rotarians can participate, but it's a little bit tricky once you get down to the nitty-gritty details of what can be paid for and what can't. My understanding is the reason they do that is they don't want global grants to be used for, say, district conferences or something like that. But it's very flexible, and part of determining the group you want to work with could be part of a mapping process, for example. That's included in the guide. Determining who do we need to be approaching about this. So I'm happy to follow up. I put my email in the chat box. If that doesn't answer your question, or you want more specifics about global grants, etc., please feel free to email me and I'm happy to follow up.
Thanks, Summer. We have another question from District Governor Charles Seeley of 7020, who is also with us. It is, how can we bring meaningful support or action to the crisis we see occurring in Portland and Chicago, in particular, but with the civil unrest generally in the US? Tangible things that we can do now.
This has come up quite a bit, and of course, within peace building and conflict prevention, between COVID, between George Floyd's murder in Chicago, or in, sorry, Minnesota, and all of the upheaval, which I say that in a positive sense, in meaning I think that we're in a historic time where these issues are being raised and we need to talk about them. So one concrete thing that I personally, and I should admit, I'm based in Mexico City, so I am a bit far away from what is going on in the United States, but have been online, and I think a concrete way is conversations, having conversations about these issues. I know that just within the Rotary Peace Fellow world, there have been a number of online meetings and discussions, and many of those have also gone to not just talking at people or saying we have to do something, but many of those have gone into more of a reflection and saying, well, what role do I play in this? What connection do I have to this? So that would be one particular thing you can do, is a facilitated discussion. I know of some resources that can help lead that, because again, this can be a very complex and very challenging conversation. So it's not something that I necessarily recommend just anybody do. I personally, for example, wouldn't feel comfortable, but know of organizations and talking points that have been provided to help lead those conversations. Beyond reflection and discussion, though, if we want to think more mid to long term, we could think about what are some of the issues underlying what's happening. And a lot of it is lack of access to specific resources, relates to education, equity, be that economic, social, etc. It really connects to the pillars of positive peace. So what sort of projects, if that's really something that someone wants to do, might look at a longer term vision of saying, if in one particular community, part of the concern is lack of access to education or lack of access to economic resources, is there a project that our Rotary Club could support based on those community needs? So you could apply a similar kind of process in identifying projects, community needs assessment, based on those, the particular context.
Thanks, Summer. We have another question from Christophe Parfait. And it is, I heard about the Rotary Peace University. I signed up, but I believe there are only English courses. When will the lessons be in French? And he's also asking, how do you become an Iep ambassador?
Okay. So the Rotary Positive Peace Academy, I think that's what's meant by the university. But the academy is currently in English and Spanish. There are plans to translate that into French and Portuguese. I don't believe, though, that will be done within a year. So I'll say that up front. It is though something, I'm glad that's brought up, because I'll now take this back to Rebecca Kroll and mention we have demand for French. And then the second part of the question, remind me.
And the second part is on how do you become an Iep ambassador?
So this is a program, and I didn't mention it just because I felt like I gave a long list of things to do as part of the Rotary Iep partnership. But Iep, as an organization that operates on its own, it's a think tank. They have a program called Iep Ambassadors, and it's basically an online training over the course of a few months in which you learn more about how they do their research. And then you're encouraged to go and do presentations. I myself was an Iep ambassador in 2016. I think Patricia Schaefer was as well. They open up applications for this program. I think it's every 6 months, and it should be coming up soon. So they have on their webpage, I believe if you Google Rotary Iep Ambassadors, there should be a webpage for that. And within that, you can put in a letter or expression of interest. But just to make sure you get connected correctly, I've included my email. Feel free to email me and I will get you that exact link. And yeah, because I believe they haven't yet opened the second class in 2019, but as soon as they do, I'm also happy to share that information. They let me know. Debbie, I can let you know, but also feel free to send me an info and I'll connect you.
Thanks, Summer. Our district is actually English, French, and Dutch speaking. So I'm just putting in a plug as well for Dutch. The next question is from Miriam Boyce. It is, in your professional opinion, how can we integrate systematic racism with peace building?
So great question, very timely. Perhaps relates a little bit to the previous point as well about practical actions. I think how to do it is, again, reflection, discussion, having those hard conversations. At a Rotary level, and maybe Peter Kyle, maybe you can speak to this more, because I've heard some rumblings that at least at a Rotary level, there may be some movement within encouraging these discussions on diversity and inclusion. Correct me if I'm wrong, Peter. Oh, you're on mute.
Well, the question is very timely, Summer, because on Wednesday, the Rotary International Board is having a special meeting devoted exclusively to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Rotary passed a statement on DEI about 18 months ago, and we're now meeting to discuss how we can flesh that out and make it more operational. So you'll be hearing more about this very shortly. Thanks, Summer, back to you.
Thank you, Peter. I had heard rumblings of this, so that's why I thought, I was hoping not to put you on the spot, but I'd heard your name mentioned in these conversations among Peace Fellows specifically. Again, there are many different ways that this could be discussed, but I also, first of all, the question of how do we discuss it is an incredible advancement. The fact that we're aware of it and being willing to discuss it. If this is something you're wanting to do within your Rotary Club or district, I would highly encourage whatever materials are coming out of Rotary to consider using those. Again, it's a complex, uncomfortable conversation for many people, but one that we need to have. In terms of other resources though, Iep this has been a question that's come up a lot within the past 2 months. And I know that IEP is trying to develop some materials or at least ways of looking at racism via the pillars of positive peace and via positive peace. So I'm realizing, Debbie, I'm gonna have to just share a bunch of information with you after this call that can be sent out to everybody. So I'll be happy to include that in it. It's more focused on analyzing and looking at it, but hopefully that could provide at least a useful perspective for discussing this timely issue.
Thanks, Summer. Another question from Virginia Oostberg, and as I would love to learn more about the work of the Peace Fellow in the area of COVID-19. And she's asking, have you, and if so, can you share how you have used this program in the workplace?
So is this I'm assuming this is kind of in relation to the Activator program? Or, oh, I don't know if that.
She didn't actually specify which program. Virginia, do you want to put it in the chat? She said yes, answer yes.
Okay, so possibly about Lorelei, who's doing this in her work with the city of Calgary. It's one particular example that she came up with, and she's agreed to share with us the materials that she's developing to do this, which is just basically an analysis tool to be able to look at the different pillars and then analyze them in a specific way based on the situation that they're dealing with. Again, I'm going to check in with her and see if that tool is ready to be used. That is something that applying the framework can be done in many different contexts. It could be done in many different workplaces. I do have some basic materials related to doing that, and I'm happy to share that. It's a basic PowerPoint that looks at what are the different pillars of positive peace and how do you sit down and do a very basic analysis. Again, IEP is a little bit more focused on the data and research, and they work very strongly with this framework. Rotary, of course, is more focused on action, and where we're trying to come at is to create tools and materials that are useful to Rotarians to make this actionable. So that's something I have basic information on, and I'll share it, but it's also something that I do want to further develop over the coming years to really think about how do you actually apply this somewhat tangible framework, but in a more concrete way within workspaces or other areas.
Thanks, Saman. We have another question from Shirley James Dutchville, and she's saying our club started a project dubbed Plates for Peace, where we provide a healthy meal to children who are needy and focus on promoting peaceful interactions and skills through games. How do we take this past one day? Is there any way you think we can deepen the impact of this particular project in the future?
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. What's exciting about that is you're incorporating different areas of focus, but then you're also looking at different areas or different pillars of positive peace. So food, of course, resources, but you're also looking at good relations with neighbors, with the kids getting along with each other. You could definitely scale up a program like this. Again, it'd be similar to the project examples that I included, whether that becomes looking at a longer term plan for say a year or two or more, looking for funding, whether it be via a district grant or a global grant. There'd be many options with this. I think probably one of the most important thing though is determining who's willing to spearhead it, and then who would you bring on board to help plan and make that happen. But as we know, Rotary is really great about creating committees, and you've got a whole peace committee here dedicated to doing the work. So I think it's something you just really need to sit down and look at how do you scale this up over time. That's something that maybe there's someone in your district that has strong experience with different projects or a project like this. But again, this could also be a place where a Rotary Peace Fellow from your district or far away could plug into. I have access to that network. I'd be happy to connect you if there's someone working on, those specific issues. It's also something potentially that a positive peace activator could lend their services. So send me an email with more details and what you're looking to do, and I'm happy to think about who to connect you with. And I'll and provide other tools and materials as I have them.
Thanks, Summer. I actually have a request from Robert Sanoa. They are looking at doing peace projects with youth. And he's saying that he would like to source programs for youth people that may have worked in other countries. So if you have any information on that, perhaps you can share it as well. But the many things that you have to share with me after the session.
Yeah, so let me quickly mention, Debbie, and I think I've shared this with you, but there may be a way to share this more widely within your district. There is a database right now for Rotary Peace Fellows. There's also beyond the database, someone who's dedicated to Rotary alumni relations, a wonderful guy, Bill Brentz. He's very much connected to the Rotary Peace Fellows, and he's someone who can be contacted. And he also created this database that is accessible by Rotarians for Rotarians looking to connect with Peace Fellows in specific areas. Also, he did create a speakers database, so there's an option as well. Once you have Patricia present, then you can have all these other Rotary Peace Fellows present. So there's quite a few options for connecting you to Peace Fellows who might be able to either provide more information, presentations, and or more support on a project.
Thanks, Summer. That brings us to the end of the questions on the chat. I want to thank you for a very wonderful and informative session. And I'm going to hand over to our committee member, Carlotta Walcott, to now do a general vote of thanks. Thanks, Summer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Rotary Coordinator Summer Lewis, Rotary International Director Peter Kyle, DG Lai, all visiting district governors, assistant governors, past district governors, our special guest, Patricia Schaefer from New Gen, all our assistant governors from 7 to 30, the club presidents, all Rotarians, Rotaractors, Interactors, good evening. We thank you for taking time to join us in this space. Summer, we thank you for your commitment to Rotary and to peace. And for everyone, we want to thank you for your interest, all your questions, and some of your intentions to do work around positive peace. It warms our hearts. We want to lift our virtual glasses to Rotary International. We want to lift our virtual glasses to Summer and the wonderful work she is doing in peace. To all the district peace, to our district peace committee, and to all clubs represented here this evening, to those of you celebrating your charters or your anniversary. Good night to you and peace.